Okay, you can start now, inshallah.
Okay, so is my voice all right?
Perfect.
Okay, thanks. So, assalamu alaikum to everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Abubakar Usman Abubakar, and today I will serve as the person that will anchor this event. With us today, we have, we're lucky that our fishing net has caught some big fishes. With all due respect to our respected speakers, of course, it's just a figure of speech. So we are very lucky to have speakers with expertise in some areas that have to do with the topic that we are here to discuss today. So without further ado, I will begin by first introducing what today's event is all about. So just a quick brief about the event itself. The title of today's event is From Country of Concern to Military Threat, Deconstructing Trump's Narrative on Nigeria. This is coming following the current president, United States President Donald Trump's declaring Nigeria a country of concern, alleging that the Nigerian government is engaging in genocide against its Christian population. He further suggested the possibility of U.S. military action, a claim, of course, that has stirred controversy and concern across diplomatic and academic cycles. So today's webinar seeks to unpack the origin, motives, and implications of Trump's assertion. It will certainly examine the narratives of religious persecution and the geopolitical context shaping U.S.-Nigeria relations. Experts will also discuss the legal and diplomatic ramifications of unilateral military threat under international law and the broader consequences such rhetoric may have for Nigeria's sovereignty, domestic and regional security or stability and international reputation. So first, before I kickstart the event, I think it will be good to start by thanking AMEC as an institution and by singling out Dr. Muslim Imran, the director of the institution, and Sister Farwina for hosting this particular event and for convening it. So we have three speakers today with us representing different expertise. With us today, number one, we do have Dr. Najimdeen Bakare, who is an associate professor at the Department of International and Strategic Studies, University Malaya. Number two, we have Dr. Hakeem Onapajo, who is also an associate professor and the head of policy and research, Legislative Center for Security Analysis, National Assembly of Nigeria, Abuja. And our third speaker is Dr. Sodiq Omoola, who is an assistant professor at the Department of, at the Faculty or Kuala of Ahmed Ibrahim of Laws at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. So together, these experts will help us unpack and dissect this recent happening or this recent rhetoric from the United States current President Donald Trump. So before I invite our speakers, I will begin by first mentioning how the event is going to be unfolding. So since we have three speakers who are expert or who have expertise in three different areas of what we are interested in understanding about today's topic, then I will take turn in asking some relevant questions related to their expertise. There will be no particular order that would be following in asking these questions, depending on how the discussion unfolds. So we hope that this will take us around an hour or less. And then at the end of the event, we will have some minutes to allow our audience to ask questions and to hear from our experts their own take about the questions that will be coming from our audience. So once again, thank you all for joining this event. And I do hope by the end of the event, you all go home having better understanding of what we are here for. So since we're ready, and I think it is about time that we just start or cruise into the event or into what we are here for. So let me begin with our expert, Dr. Najimdeen Bakare. Let me begin with you, especially with regard to the strategic motives behind the narratives itself. So my question to you, Doctor, is to what extent does Trump's framing of Nigeria as a country of concern reflect broader U.S. geopolitical motives in Africa, particularly with regard to counter-terrorism, migration, and energy security? So, Dr. Najimdeen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Abubakar, for this platform, and also for AMEC for gathering us together. I think you have asked a very valid question. But before answering that question, I think we should also put into context the CPC, as it is known, country of particular concern. And this will not be the very first time with which the United States is labeling a country as part of the CPC. It has always been the tradition of the Secretary of State or Department of Secretary of State in the US. To a very great extent, we have seen in the past whereby the US allies were also bracketed, or they were clubbed in that particular context. Take, for example, India has always been a very strategic ally of the United States in South Asia. And for so many times, we have seen India being labeled as part of the CPC. Same goes to Saudi Arabia, which is a very, very close ally of the United States in terms of strategic allies. Again, goes for Pakistan. So I think if we put that into context, then it will help us to understand that should we nurture or should we nurse a fear of the strategic implication of any attempt that the United States might be taking this as an excuse to intervene in Nigeria. And I think as a student of political science or international relations, again, we need to look at it from the tradition of the United States, that it has never happened. And I need to emphasize that it has never happened. It has never been part of the US foreign policy to intervene or to invade a country on the platform of religion, number one. Number two, the United States have never invaded a country or intervened in a country or interfere in their political or domestic affairs on the basis of policy. Whatever the United States has been doing could come as a form of a sanction or diplomatic pressure, and all of those, maybe financial, disengaging themselves from the kind of humanitarian assistance or foreign aid they render to such a country. So they've never been in the history of the United States where CPC was used as an excuse in which a country is invaded. Now, coming back to that question, that should we situate these within the larger canvas of counterterrorism in Africa? Yes, one can, because the great power would always find an excuse to pursue their strategic interests vis-a-vis the competition going on the continent now. We've seen the rising wave of Russia, the growing phenomena of China, not just in West Africa, but all across the continent, particularly in East Africa. So when we put all of this in context, one can better understand that the US does not want to be left behind in the politicization or the geopolitics that is having a new configuration or coloration in Africa. So the US does not want to be left behind. And to an extent, it is important also to see that China or Russia will be considered to a certain extent as a newcomer, although the Chinese or the Russians, they have had different levels of relations with the African continent. But in terms of what we've seen in the recent past or in the recent times, we've seen to a deeper, more relations between Africa and these power that be. Now, for the US, again, I want to say that when it comes to the, number one, back almost a decade ago or 2 decades ago, Nigeria would export at least 40% of its oil down to the United States, but that has changed. But still, Nigeria plays a very important role in the geostrategic calculus of the United States. So attempt to destabilize Nigeria would not be necessarily be in the interest of the United States because at the end of the day, there's going to be a crossover or effect or dominion effect or spillover effect of whatever happens in Nigeria would affect the rest of West Africa or the larger Africa continent for that matter. So geostrategic-wise, it will not be in the interest of whether it is what I call the Euro-American zone. So we nurturing or trying to overblown the implication of United States having some form of military intervention in Nigeria. I think we should not overblown that. The possibility that it might happen, of course, there are possibility that it might happen, but to give it more credence, and I think one should be very, very careful about that, looking at the antecedent of US vis-a-vis CPC.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for this very comprehensive answer. So I would like, having you already touched on the meaning or the definition of country of particular concern. So perhaps I should take us back a little bit. And I will try to send this question to Dr. Sodiq Sway, being or having background in international law and the legal aspect of things. So my question to you, Dr. Sodiq, first, I would like you to shed a little more light on the meaning of the country of particular concern, one. And two, I would like you also to just help us understand under the international law whether what Trump has done or is trying to do by leveling Nigeria and threatening Nigeria, whether it has any legality to it. For the fact that it is a unilateral threat, and whether, of course, as I said, how do such statements fit within the doctrine of the threat of force and other provisions of the international law? Dr. Sodiq? We cannot hear you. Then you are muted. you're still mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I get your questions clearly. Sorry about the inability to unmute. Thank you for having this forum. It's an opportunity to share and learn from other colleagues. Talking about the meaning of country of particular concern, there are several statutes in the United States passed by the US Congress, which has extraterritorial applications. This is always an issue with several laws passed by the US Congress, which might extend beyond the soil of the US. So this is basically against the sovereignty of several states. So that's just a background. Regarding the meaning of the term, it's one of the several designations in the International Religious Freedom Act, which was passed in 1998 by the United States Congress. It has been amended a few times. But basically, this statute relies on few other laws, international law passed by the UN or agreed upon by the UN regarding non-discriminatory actions of states, for example, ICCPR and a few others regarding human rights. So this is the justification for the United States to have such a law passed by the Congress to affect others. So they rely on other statutes passed or agreed upon at the UN. So basically it means that a designation made by the US Secretary of State. There are few other designations, and the CPC seems to be the highest. There is also the entities of particular concern and a few others. So basically this is when it's established that there's a violation in the view of the commissioner. There's a commission for this. That is a violation of religious rights, including torture, detention, and all kind of violation which are already existing in international law. So this is the background. It could also include abduction. But in my opinion, it would have been better to have certain groups as entities of particular concern rather than a country of particular concern. And we might also not say that this is out of place because the source of the information might be the reason. Every May 1st of every year, there must be a report submitted to the office in charge of this, which is the Secretary of State, an annual report reviewing the list of countries of particular concern. And 90 days after the May 1st, there must be some action, which is a statement, for example, something like this. So this is just the background. And the same international law prohibits threat of force. This is a kind of a two-edged sword. This statute, the RFRA, International Religious Freedom Act, 1998, relies on the UN Charter and other human rights conventions. However, the UN Charter itself prohibits threats of force to any member states. So there are several other statutes that encourage peaceful settlement of disputes rather than, can I say, social media statements by any president or any world leader. I think for now, I would like to stop here. There are still lots of things to unpack. The question is quite loaded, actually. Yeah, I mean, this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we'll have more time to go deeper or to delve deeper into that. You have mentioned a few, or you have made a few points, which I think bring us to the right place for us to ask questions about how diplomatically this can be viewed. So my next question will be related to the impact of this leveling of Nigeria and the threat from Donald Trump. I will be asking Dr. Hakeem on the impact on Nigeria's image and diplomacy as well. So my question specifically is, how might Trump's rhetoric reshape Nigeria's international image, especially in context like Global Counter-Terrorism Evaluation or Religious Freedom Report? Over to you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Abubakar. And thanks to AMEC for facilitating today's discussion. You've asked me a very important question. To answer it, if you look at the kind of responses that have followed Trump's statements, it's surprising because what people would have thought was that kind of statement, the blacklisting of Nigeria would give Nigeria a negative image. But surprisingly, the kind of reactions that we have seen from other countries, including China, the African Union, ECOWAS, I think there was also a response from Russia, the European Union. So all of this for me appears somehow positive. And it has actually strengthened Nigeria's image in the international system. Some of us never imagined that Nigeria was this important to some of these countries to the extent that they would come out to give, this kind of solidarity to Nigeria. So for me, at the governmental level, we may see that there isn't a destruction of Nigeria's image as we would normally think that this kind of statement would impact on Nigeria's image. But if you look at it at the level of the citizens, especially Western societies, we may say that it may have, to some extent, destroyed Nigeria, given Nigeria a bad image in terms of how they see religious freedom. I've seen comments from different countries, especially in America, even within Africa. There are statements suggesting that Christians are being targeted for killing, assassinations in Nigeria. So all of this shows that if you look at it from these two angles, you see that on the government side, I think government-to-government relations, maybe for their own strategic reasons, I don't think there is a significant negative impact on the Nigerian's image internationally. But if you look at it at the citizens' level, in terms of public opinion, we may not say that the country's image has not been badly affected. So that's on that side. Then on the other side, your second question is on the counter-terrorism. Counter-terrorism, this issue has brought to the fore again the extent of terrorism in Nigeria. Since 2009, Nigeria has been battling with the Boko Haram, and I don't think there is much that is known about it internationally except after the 2014 campaign against on the issue of the Chibok girls. I don't think the international community has been following it that much, but this recent statement on Nigeria, especially from Trump, has brought to the light again the extent of the problem of terrorism. And it has also shown that the Nigerian government has not been able to tackle it effectively as it would have expected of a country like Nigeria that is expected to have the largest military capacity in Africa. So I think what we can pick from all of this is that the message that is sent out internationally is that the country is not doing well with regards to counter-terrorism, countering terrorist attack. And it has also shown that the terrorists seem to be winning in the Nigerian context, in Nigeria. And if you look at the Global Terrorism Index, for example, Nigeria is listed amongst the countries that are most affected by terrorism. So all of this, in summary, shows that much is not being done about terrorism. So it has given Nigeria a negative image with regards to counter-terrorism.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Dr. Hakeem, for the domestic view of this leveling. Before I steer the discussion away from diplomacy, so I think it will be good if I ask another question. And this question I will again direct it to you, Dr. Sodiq, with regard to the diplomatic and multilateral avenues for Nigeria. The leveling has already been carried out and the threat has already been issued. So what legal or diplomatic mechanisms are available to Nigeria? The AU, which is of course also a stakeholder here, or ECOWAS to respond to such unilateral threat. So could the matter be raised before, let's say, the United Nations Security Council or General Assembly?
Okay, thank you for this. This is the realm of peaceful resolution of international disputes, or amicable resolution of international dispute. I will call it a dispute because it could be through diplomatic means to settle it, could also be through some legal means at the international level. But for Nigeria, looking at the relationship with the US, which is, we can say that it's not so weak, we are like friends in a way, diplomatically, it might be difficult to explore certain legal means. We might be having a kind of taking back. I mean, we're not interested. I'll tell you why. These are the options. Diplomatic protests. Have we made any diplomatic protests? I would say no. We might have made, I mean, the president has made a statement directing to the whole community and the US that we are open for solutions. That is not a protest in a way. But if there's going to be a protest, usually it will involve the US ambassador to Nigeria, formally invited or something like that. And this we have seen in other countries where, for example, maybe the following day, there will be an ultimatum for the US ambassador to Nigeria to leave or invited or someone. Yeah, so we have not done that. And for reasons being that, perhaps the Nigeria as a whole, without the people, I mean, we're looking at the government, we value the relationship with the US for several reasons, trade and others. And regarding democratic support, we value the US. So this diplomatic protest has not been explored properly. Second is the regional diplomacy. In a way, regional diplomacy has been explored because we've seen the AU Commission representative make statements regarding this, stating what he knows about the conflict in Nigeria regarding terrorism and the likes. And the statement is so clear that there is no Christian genocide in Nigeria. But this kind of regional diplomacy is not really directed to the US, it's just stating their own position. So that is still a weak take. For reasons being, in my opinion, we don't want to confront the US with the back and forth in the international community. And the third one regarding the United Nations General Assembly or Security Council, I am not aware of any General Assembly statement put by the Nigerian government to open the whole discussion to the UN General Assembly, not to talk of the Security Council. For General Assembly statements, it's always just a statement to make others aware that this is our position on this, but this is not done yet. But for Security Council, I mean, to protest this at Security Council, we know that perhaps nothing will come out of it. We know the antecedents of the United States. There might be a veto, or there will be a veto, let me not say there might be. So none of this has been explored yet. However, the alternative methods, I believe, are being explored, which are non-legal in a way. They don't include statement that looks more formal, but some kind of meeting between the lines, not confrontation. And this seems to be the way to go, in my opinion. So non-legal diplomatic exchanges. And now we can see that the president took some steps by trying to appoint ambassadors, which is perhaps one of the gaps that led to this. So because everyone knows this is coming. It's been on for quite some time, but perhaps we did not do the right thing at the right time to engage. So engagement is the key on this. And hopefully there will be some solutions. So these are the options, but some have not been taken because they might be too strong, while some are being done already. So this is my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite interesting. So let me recall our Prof, Associate Prof, Dr. Najimdeen. From here, I think it will be very interesting at this point to also look at the issue from the U.S. domestic politics and external narratives. So my question to you, Dr. Najimdeen, is how do U.S. domestic political dynamics, such as evangelical influence, far-right rhetoric, Russia's expanding footprint in West Africa, and what have not. So, let me rephrase that. So how do U.S. Domestic political dynamics, such as evangelical influence, far-right rhetoric, and electoral strategy, shape external narrative targeting African states like Nigeria? So I will love to hear your take on this.
Okay, thank you once again for giving me the platform. Okay, I think one should again place this in a larger context of peace and conflict studies, that when you look at how the US is approaching this issue of terrorism or strategic issues in Nigeria, then we might want to borrow from Edward Hazel, who in the 1970s made us to understand certain factors of how state or an external entity would get involved in a third party or second party. Now, the case in Nigeria, it is very communal in nature. And it is what I would refer to as a protracted social conflict, because it has been there for a very long time. And I believe the two speakers after me, they have also reiterated this point extensively, that whatever we see today, it is not just an eventual or circumstance or phenomena. It has always owned the politics of Nigeria for years. So it is a protracted social conflict, which of course has the nomenclature of communal conflict, communal identity crisis, number one. Number two, of course, it has this relative deprivation, where some parts of the country feels that they are being deprived of their rights and they are being marginalized. See, as we know that the politics of Nigeria has always been revolving around 4 major Ds. Number one would be dehumanization, demonization, victimization, and victimhood. Now, if you connect this with the question which you have asked, is the fact that the domestic politics, which is quite evangelical in nature as regard President Trump, that the argument of Christian persecution in one part of the world would connect with the communal factors, which is one of the recipe of protracted social conflict. And one of the characteristics of protracted social conflict is international interference, which of course explains that there's a possibility, like I said earlier, there's a possibility the US may intervene in Nigeria. But again, I'm very cautious in making an assertive statement that the US will certainly intervene in Nigeria. So it means if we look at the politics in Nigeria and the domestic politics in the United States, both aligns, number one. Number two, the fact that Donald Trump himself claimed to be a far-right politician, and the far-right politics is not necessarily religious. I think one should also be very careful about that. Far-right politics is not necessarily religious. It is much more conservative. And conservatism sometimes here might mean, if you look at MAGA, Make America Great, one of the cardinal points of MAGA is that Americans should be more inward-looking. United States should not consider itself as the police of the world. And I think Trump was very clear about that in his first term, that United States will cease to become the police of the world. So we might say that the second term of Trump is totally against the old principle of MAGA. That means not to intervene in the world or not to become the police of the world. So it's again itself a contradiction of the old principles of MAGA. So on one hand, we see the evangelical influence driving the sentiment of Trump and those who have surrounded him, one. Number two, I would also connect with the diaspora, the Nigerian diaspora in the United States, who might have been responsible, have lobbied the US congressmen to push President Trump and, of course, the Department of State to labeling Nigeria as part of the CPC, because there's a great extent to which the diaspora lobby might have played a certain role. Now, in this whole game, the question now is, how does this affect the politics of Nigeria? I think we should not isolate this from the last election in Nigeria. It's a very important part. Anyone who is not mathematical enough to understand that CPC, the last election in Nigeria, the evangelical mission in the United States, the diaspora in the United States, trust me, all of these are all connected. We understand how polarizing the last election was, how religious undertone it was, how certain political player played the religious game, even though the current presidency, we know it is a Muslim ticket, but the opposition that eventually lost, we saw how they were running from polls to polls, from wall to wall, galvanizing religious sentiments and crying foul that certain religious community should take over the country. What Ebenezer, one of my great Nigerian thinkers, Ebenezer, will say that this is the Pentecostalization or Christianization of Nigeria, which somehow some people might reject as an argument, as we find some people claiming that there is Islamization of Nigeria. So all of these things are quite connected. So the question of politics, it is much more connected to the domestic politics going on in Nigeria vis-a-vis the religiosity and the religious undertone of our politics. Now, let us erase it. Let us minus ethnicity and tribalism. It is more religious, because here we're looking at the influence of the evangelical in the United States and the influence of the Pentecostal institution in Nigeria, and of course the last election that some people want it to be a Christian-led election, that they want the church to regain in Nigeria, or maybe I don't know how I'm going to put it. If United States, it is MAGA, Make America Great Again, maybe it is Make the Christian Nigeria Great Again. So there is a connection to all of these. And lastly, of course, as per your question, is how does it shape external narrative targeting African states like Nigeria? Of course, there have been there's been intention of making Nigeria to look alike, to be what some people want it to be. But again, I'm very, very careful not to overestimate or to be very assertive. Number one, President Trump is a business-oriented president who is very careful in even any conflict he's going to get involved in, regardless of the fact that it might be driven prompted by a certain religious group, but still he has played a very cautious game in trying to demonstrate his own religiosity. And I think if this happened in the case of Nigeria, it is definitely going to have a dominion effect all across the continent. You take, for example, in Cameroon, this is a very volatile area. Let alone we talk about Ivory Coast that has also been facing similar issues like we see in Nigeria, where between the Christian and the Muslims, Ivorians, or we talk of even in Ghana, though Ghana has been relatively peaceful, but certainly for sure there would be a dominion effect if eventually there's an external interference in the Nigerian politics on the basis of religion.
Thank you very much. Quite a comprehensive and informative response to that question, or to those series of questions. So since we are talking about the domestic dimension of this leveling of Nigeria, so let me take the issue now to the domestic, to the Nigerian domestic environment. I will direct this question towards you, Dr. Hakeem. And my question will be centered around the domestic political dynamics. And my question is, could Trump's comment excavate domestic divisions, for example, religious, ethnic, or partisan in Nigeria? And how might political actors exploit these narratives now?
Okay, thank you very much. For those who have been observing Nigerian politics, they would understand that Nigeria has a very complex political environment. Every issue has a tendency to be politicized. And in fact, the whole issue of Boko Haram, the conflict that we have been experiencing for some time, has some political undertone under it. And it's part of the reasons why we've not been able to have a meaningful solution to that crisis. So with regards to your question, I've seen three political interests that have emerged from this development. And it's connected to the question that you have had. The first one is the religio-political interest. In terms of the religio-political interest, Nigeria has a complex and, a difficult relationship between religious groups, the Muslims and the Christians, as it's been rightly, alluded to by Dr. Najimdeen. This tension has been there for a very long time, even since before independence. So this event, the development from the United States of America has, further inflamed this religious tension that has been happening in the country. There are claims and counterclaims of, is it Christianization? Is it Islamization of the country? So what we have seen now is that this statement has significantly, influenced or inflamed this tension that has been between Muslims and Christians in the country. If you study the discourse, the communications around it on the social media, for example, you see claims from the Muslim communities that there is nothing like Christian genocide. In fact, there is a recent statement by one of the leading Islamic scholars in Nigeria that, in fact, the whole of some of these things are fake coffins that they are putting out there to give an impression of Christian genocide. While on the other side, too, they have emphasized the fact that there's Christian genocide and there's a connection between these and a Muslim ticket or an all-Muslim government that we have in Nigeria. So what they are trying to imply is that the government is enabling or is supporting the genocide of Christians in the country. So it has further divided religious relationship in the country. And if you look at the second interest, we have the ethno-political interest. There are claims, particularly from people from the Southeast, that there is some sort of Igbo marginalization, the marginalization of this group. over the years in terms of political power. And, it became more complex with the emergence of IPOB, that is the Indigenous People of Biafra from 2015. And, they have been calling for the cessation of the Igbo people of the Southwest from Nigeria. And if you look at those who are the diasporas that are behind some of this lobby in the United States of America, you see the significant influence of the people from the Southeast, that is the Igbo, behind some of these things against the Nigerian state. And so what we have seen is that this particular statement has created room again for this ethnic tension that we have in the country. There is a claim of some certain northern hegemony of the country, that over the years, those who have benefited from power are people from the northern part of the country. And, from this side too, from the southern parts, from the northern parts too, there is also a claim that these people, particularly from the southeast, they are necessarily, against the Nigerian states. They cannot be trusted with power. So these claims and counterclaims and the ethnicization of the whole discourse has, further divided the country. And there are even, concerns that this might lead to another civil war in the country. So if you look at the third political interest is what I call the electoral, or what you call the partisan political interest. You see, with the statement, you've seen political parties immediately benefiting from this narrative of blacklisting Nigeria. The opposition have quickly picked it up. You have seen, although they were very cautious about releasing statements on it, but even silence in this regard shows some sort of support for the United States of America against the Nigerian state, because it's an opportunity for them to claim that the government in power is not doing enough with regards to fighting terrorism. Those who are also in government, the incumbents, are also using it as an opportunity to also label the opposition as being anti-Nigeria sovereignty, because the major figures in the opposition have chosen to keep silent about it. And even when one of them, that's Peter Obi, released a statement, he was very careful in a statement. But even with that, this statement that this guy used, Trump, about Nigeria being a disgraced country, he has also found a way to adopt it and use it in another context. So it has created opportunity for more politicization of the whole issue. And what we have seen with all of this is that the political, there's a high level of political tension in the country presently. And, besides the fact that there is a possibility of a military action or not, but the whole thing has been highly inflamed within the country, that it might escalate whatever existing conflict that we have in the country at the moment. So to answer your question, the statement, the blacklisting of Nigeria and the threat of a military action against the state has an impact on the existing politics, domestic politics in the country. Things have become so tense at the moment compared to the atmosphere before the statement was released by the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Quite insightful, and I think for us who are right now outside of the country will definitely benefit a lot from your take on that. Let me re-invite Dr. Sodiq here, and I will try to steer the discussion again onto the something related to the legal aspect of it. So I would like to know if there is precedent and the state responsibility in this case. So the question specifically I would like to ask is, are there precedents where inflammatory rhetoric by a head of state resulted in legal, diplomatic, or security consequences? How might this precedent apply to Nigeria's case?
Okay, I think I'm audible here. Regarding rhetorics are not actionable in law. So, but the actual threat of use of force, we can see threats of use of force that could be actionable. So, however, there are precedents regarding the actual use of force. The threat itself, not so much of legal, because you cannot prove intention, you cannot prove the actual action. It's just a threat. But the locus classicus in international law regarding threats, out of many, is the Nicaragua's case in 1986. In this case, there was actual threat of use of force, and there was the use of force. There are many takeaways in the case, which is this is in the fact itself is that there is an indirect intervention in Nicaragua, where the United States, as expected, the United States supported Contra rebels, which are like outlawed group in Nicaragua against the Nicaraguan government. So this, apparently, they did not hide the fact that they supported this group. So because of this, there was an action at the ICJ between Nicaragua and the US. One of the points in this case is that economic sanction is not considered the kind of force we are talking about in Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter. If there is a threat, and the threat is carried out and it amounts to economic sanctions or trade sanctions, this is okay. This is just part of deals between countries. The force the law is trying to talk about is actual use of force, which includes military, nuclear, and the likes. And basically, the president is against whoever use of force, use the force against any country. So the international law, as we know, it has been argued that is it a law because does it have the force of enforcement and things like that. So basically, use of force is outlawed by the ICJ. The only force that is acceptable is when the UN Security Council has agreed to take an action, collective action by the UN Security Council. We also have precedents of actual use of force, which has been controversial and not in agreement by UN Security Council. We found that in Afghanistan, in Iraq. But rhetoric itself is just rhetoric and a threat. Until it's carried out, it's not actionable at the ICJ. Few other cases also against the US, Iran and US, where the United States destroyed the oil platform. This is in 2003. And there are many few others, which was actual threats. In the Congo as well, against Uganda, this is not part of US precedent. However, the Nicaraguan's case was used as a precedent to say that Uganda military cannot intervene in the Congo. So military intervention is outlawed under international law. However, we have many states that get away with it. We have the example of Israel and Palestine, which also involves the US. So basically, they have the sway with the Security Council. So that's the thing. There are precedents, and all the precedents are not in favor of whoever intervenes in the sovereign country. Indirect intervention also, as well, has been considered to be an intervention. So this is my point on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite informative as well. I think it will be also quite interesting to touch on the geopolitical aspect. I think earlier on, I think that Najimdeen has already started mentioning something related to that. So I would love to take the discussion back to the geopolitical and great power dimension of this issue. My question, therefore, is to Dr. Najimdeen, and I would like to ask you whether Trump narrative can be read as part of a larger strategic push to counter China or China's and Russia's expansion footprint in West Africa, which has been documented broadly. And if so, what tools does the US typically use to reassert influence?
Thank you. Again, but I think let me take a kind of revert to what Dr. Sodiq just mentioned. I think this matter of international relations and international law need a very careful contextual analysis. Now, the case of Nicaragua, which he identified, which we studied quite extensively in international law, if you look at that, it is not in the same shoe as in CPC. Because again, CPC is quite different. It is specifically looking at how religious community or human rights are being violated. In the Nicaragua case, it was more of political, where the rebel group, the dissidents, were supported. So any other cases, I think one should be very careful in jumbling them up. The CPC has its own content. Having said that, I would also want to agree with Dr. Sodiq on the fact that there's this American exceptionalism that will always be very important in all of these cases, even if the old United Nations refused or stood their ground that United States should not intervene in Nigeria geopolitically. US can always play it exceptional card where the US can have its own way and nothing will happen. And I think they did that recently in Iran, which was not a sanction by United Nations or even the Security Council. But now, just strategic-wise, that how does it fit into the context of China and Russia in Africa? One might say, on largely speaking or generic speaking, it finds some resonance with it. It finds some resonance. But we should also look at the tradition. We should try to look at the pattern of behavior of this state. If eventually there's an intervention in Nigeria, China has a huge stake in Nigerian economy and also in Africa. Russia has its own stake in different parts of Africa and also in Nigeria. So that diplomatic plot, diplomatic sway might come from external forces, the way Dr. Sodiq was mentioning that Nigeria has not been able to muzzle up a very powerful and invincible diplomatic kind of, I would say, that would discourage the United States from taking a belligerent action towards Nigeria. And I think this will come from external players like China or Russia. Just strategic-wise, the only country that might be of having huge competition or strategic competition with that of the US will be China, like I mentioned earlier. I think for United States, for Russia, it is less, except when we look at those West African countries that of recent, they adopted military rule. For Nigeria, it will be much more of China. So trying to balance up the Chinese influence in Nigeria on the premise of religious violation. So the question now is, again, let me need to support Dr. Sodiq at this junction, is that sometimes a state might not have the diplomatic clout or the diplomatic wherewithal to confront a superpower or to confront a great power. So it might need an alliance, which of course, given the fact that China has a huge stake in Nigeria, so it will be in the benefit of the Nigerian government to ally with China in order to kind of pressurize the United States from taking something which I call the irrational policy towards Nigeria. So that will be one way to look at it. But as Dr. Sodiq mentioned earlier, that the Nigerian government would need to come up with their own diplomatic pressure. But the question here is United States truly an enemy or a foe of Nigeria? No. So the reason why we find the climate still very soft, which is not as harsh as Dr. Hakeem mentioned earlier, the climate is not very tense because of the level of relationship between Nigeria and United States. At it being, it is a country that the United States does not even have its own stake in it. We'll be talking about, it's going to be altogether a different story. But the US has a stake in Nigeria, so it will not be economic, political, and diplomatical wise for US to just come into Nigeria, and of course the Chinese are there. So the bottom line here is that geostrategically, Nigeria would need the support of a country like China to put pressure on the United States from taking an irrational action towards this West African country.
Thank you very much. And that is quite, I think, a deep topic on itself. Probably if we do have time, then we could be able to go deeper into that. But hopefully we can get another opportunity to do so. Having said that, I would like to re-invite Dr. Hakeem. My question now is more about the regional implication of the leveling of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and the threat coming from the United States. The question specifically is, how might Trump's framing of Nigeria influence ECOWAS politics, especially given current tension within the bloc and the emergence of the Sahel Alliance?
Okay, I think we need to understand what is happening in West Africa at the moment within the ECOWAS region. I just mentioned that the Global Terrorism Index declared the Sahel region that significantly falls within the ECOWAS as the hotbed of terrorism in the world today. Most of the countries where we have the highest incidence of terrorism appear to be in West Africa. These countries including Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria. All of these they have a way of connecting with recent development with regards to Nigeria-US relations. On the first side, we may want to look at it from the angle of the response. Let's look at it first from the response of the EU, of ECOWAS. ECOWAS has released a statement too, although it wouldn't go beyond statements. Many West African countries appear to be very poor, less powerful countries who don't even have the capacity to be able to withstand or oppose whatever the US says. But at least they've shown some sort of solidarity towards Nigeria. And we have to also look at it from the angle of Nigeria's influence within the West African region. So what we have seen recently is the fact that there is a stronger solidarity for Nigeria within the region. And this points to the fact that they understand that whatever happens to Nigeria, would significantly affect the ECOWAS, for example, because I think Dr. Najimdeen talked about the humanitarian crisis that might emerge from a war or a military action on Nigeria, especially given the fact that these terrorists are operating within the border communities in Nigeria. So there's a possibility of them, of a spillover to other countries within the West African region. So I think from that angle, ECOWAS is trying to be careful or they are trying to show more solidarity for regional security. That's one. Two, the fear that I have about, the statement, the recent development, it's an indication of some sort of weakness of the states in managing terrorism in the country. A civilian government now, a democratic regime, not being able to effectively contain the terrorists. And if you look at developments with regards to the threat of coup within the region, countries that have recently been taken over by the military, it comes against the backdrop of concerns about conflict, terrorism in those countries. If you look at Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger Republic. So what it shows is that we have to be very careful with how, even the United States has to be very careful in how they frame the issue, in how they respond to the issue, so that we don't even fall. We don't fall under a military regime. We don't have a collapse of the democracy that we are trying to manage. Because, once we have a fall of democracy in Nigeria, what it means is that there's a threat to ECOWAS. We already have 3 countries under the Alliance of Sahelian States. And once Nigeria, which is the strongest country holding the ECOWAS, we don't pray for that. If it should fall under a military government again, what it means is that this country would easily align with other military states. And once there is an alliance with other military states, then, we can say a goodbye to ECOWAS. So I think, there is a bigger threat around the US statement on Nigeria, the threat of military action, and I think those around Trump have tried to enlighten him over the possible implications of the threat that he has made on the Nigerian state, because there is a bigger implication around it. It threatens the future of ECOWAS. It's going to escalate security crisis within the ECOWAS region. The country the region already have been declared, as I mentioned, as the hotbed of terrorism. So once you start a military action within the country, then what it means is that some of these, although Chad is trying to close its borders against Nigeria, but how many borders will they close? So what it means is that there's massive movement, even after closing the border. We have seen reports that there's a massive movement of these terrorist groups into other countries in the Sahel now. They're trying to run away to prevent against a possible military attack. So what happens when there is now actually a military action? What it means is that there would be, movement to other countries, and it's going to escalate the security crisis that we are experiencing within the region. So it's in terms of the future of democracy for the region, in terms of the future of ECOWAS itself, in terms of addressing the problem of terrorism. I think it's going to have a bigger implication on the ECOWAS.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, or dear audience, we are drawing closer to the end of our program. But before we do end, if you do have questions, please, you can probably type them in the chat, or otherwise we can give maybe 1 or 2 opportunities by the end of it, actually, for you to ask your questions. I will ask one final question to each of our speakers, respected speakers today. Let me begin with Dr. Sodiq. my question will be related to religious freedom claims as a legal or as legal justification. My question is, so Trump often frames Nigeria now in terms of Christian persecution in legal terms. So can claims of religious persecution justify any form of external intervention?
Okay, thank you for this. This kind of question can be quite subjective and objective because the country which is trying to designate others based on principles of religious freedom and human rights itself cannot be considered to have religious freedom for all its different groups in the United States. So this basis, we can say that though based on legislation passed by the US Congress, looking at the whole things about customary international law and principles of state sovereignty, if there is a claim of religious persecution, this should be solved on the basis of engagement. So it's not tenable. Although we have precedents of where you have groups against each other that led to a wide-scale war. We have the case of Rwanda and all that, and the Rwanda genocide. Although there's elements of religion and ethnic bias, but this should be solved through engagement. And under international law, we know that countries are not equally spilled in terms of religions, membership, and all that. So, however, engagement should be the way to go. And I also want to point out what are the options given to the United States president regarding designation as CPC, SWL, and all that under the IFRA Act. Military action is not part of the option. Section 405 of the IFRA Act mentioned this clearly. There could be economic sanctions, there could be engagement, but blazing gun is not part of the options mentioned in the Act. I think this should be a point to engage experts from both United States, and this should be a point to engage the United States itself regarding what are the options stated in this law. Military option is not. And in fact, from my little research, no country has been invaded by military means on the basis of a CPC designation. It has never happened. There will be other pretexts, yes. But on the basis of CPC, no country has been invaded militarily. So if we look at the provision of the law itself, perhaps we shouldn't worry at all, perhaps. But since we know that there could be some lawlessness somewhere, there could be some military, as we have seen in the past. For example, at the moment, you have Venezuelan military action against neighbors of the US. Yeah, and the claims, with claims of saying that there is cocaine and heroin going into their country. This is also an unilateral action in a way. So that could be a reason why we should speak about this. But looking at the law itself, there could be no reason to worry. We just engage. Another point is that this designation expires after 2 years. Naturally, it expires after 2 years, except it is re-designated again. So perhaps, hopefully, with the engagements, we become de-designated, hopefully. But regarding international law, religious freedom is guaranteed under United Nations Charter, and each country has a way of maintaining religious freedom. So this should be recognized as sovereign countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me just re-invite Dr. Hakeem for another question that I believe many of our audience right now will be quite interested to know, which is related to the public opinion and the social media dynamics. We are living in the social media time, and everything is usually discussed, debated, and there will be a lot of movement or a lot of things happening over the social media. So how do Nigerians, especially youth and politically active groups, perceive such statement? Could digital discourse amplify tensions or shape new forms of nationalism? What do you think, Doctor?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abubakar. But before I respond to your question, let me quickly, comment a little bit about the response given by Dr. Sodiq. He's looking at it from the angle of international law, and he seems to be very much optimistic. I think Dr. Najimdeen too is also arguing in the same light. That the threat of military action may not happen. That there is no law that empowers the United States of America to invade the country on the grounds of CPC. But if you look at the pattern of the argument, it's going beyond the CPC thing. There is also a claim of Christian genocide. There is a genocide claim that goes with it. And once you are having a genocide claim, it might be a ground for military intervention. In international law, even in the United States law, it empowers them to be able to intervene. So the question of whether there's a genocide or not is another thing entirely. And we are dealing with a president that is somehow erratic, someone that is not predictable. So we can't totally rule out the possibility of a military action. But I think that part there's more engagement, the tension is being doused as a result of counter narratives from within the country and by the Nigerian government. Then going back to your question on the social media engagement of the issue or response to the issue, I think what I've seen so far is that two categories of Nigerians have emerged, especially the youth, have emerged over the issue. There is a category of people who appear patriotic, nationalistic over the issue. Those who seem to be in support of the states and the government over the claim of genocide and the threat of a military action against the country. What they have argued so far is that what they have done on the social media is that they've tried to counter the narratives. On the one side, you see some of them, bringing evidence of Muslim genocide, so if there's anything of such, or attacks on the Muslim community. They brought that fact. Number two, they've been able to, expose some of the Nigerians or the lobby groups that are giving false claims about the country. And another thing they have done is that they've done some counter narratives within the country, trying to sensitize Nigerians about the need for them to support the country against a possible military intervention. Then we have another group of Nigerians within the social media space that for political reasons, for religious reasons, but most of them are political anyway, they seem to be happy with the fact that there is a possible, in fact, the labeling of the country as a CPC state and the kind of words, disparaging statements that came from President Trump. They seem to be very happy about it because what it means by implication is that it's a confirmation of the weakness of the government in power. And if you look at the statements that are coming from them, it's like the leader, your president, has no credibility. The election was stolen, and that is the reason why you are having this. So you see them being happy about what is happening. Then it's an opportunity also for those who want to separate from the country. They are also leveraging. In fact, they've been the most visible in all of this. So they are also leveraging the opportunity to champion the cause of disintegration of Nigeria so that they can have their own state. So it's the youth have been divided. On the one side, we have the nationalists. We have, on the other hand, we have the anti-Nigerian rhetoric or statement coming from some. And this issue that I told you about the fact that it has further divided the country religiously and ethnically. This is also visible in the statements that are coming from the youth. Some on the one side, there's Muslims have been attacked, Christians who have been attacked, fighting of each other on the social media over the issue. So largely, but if you look at the percentage of those who seem to be winning, if you want to use that language, those who appear to be winning in the debate, I think those who are pro-Nigeria, are winning the debate. They seem to have dominated the space, and they are making some progress with regards to that. You are muted.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Hakeem, for your revelation about the social media platform and what is going on it, actually, with regard to this development. So we are really out of time currently. I would love to ask Dr. Najimdeen another question, but it seems that we only have 7 minutes left for the time that we promised to use for today's webinar. So perhaps I should just allow 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So please, if anybody from the audience has got a question, please, you can raise your hand and please keep it short, maybe 1 or 2 questions. Unfortunately, we may not be able to take more. But yeah, if you do have a question, please ask. And you can also mention or direct it to one of the speakers, or otherwise we can just choose one of the speakers to respond to it. Any question, please? All right. Okay, Dr. Sodiq.
Okay, since there are no questions, there's something I want most people here who are non-lawyers to take away from this talk. Number 1, or let me just say just one of it, because Christian genocide, what is genocide itself under international law? The Genocide Convention was agreed upon as a result of the World War and to prevent recurrence of it again. And Article 2 of the Genocide Convention mentions acts that could be considered as genocide. Do we have those acts in Nigeria? Yes. However, it's not enough to prove that you have those acts. The article also provides for intent, which is intention. In criminal law, whether international or local, you talk about actus reus, the act itself, and you talk about the mens rea. Mens rea is the mental intention. Do we have evidence of the mental intention? So this is why the Christian genocide thing seems to be dead on arrival, because it's difficult to prove. You have deaths of Muslims, deaths of non-Muslims, you have deaths of those who are neither Christian or Muslim. So Christian genocide is quite difficult to prove independently and under the law. So this is my take on this. Thank you.
So thank you very much. We have 5 minutes left. So maybe for the final 5 minutes, let me ask the question that I intended to ask Dr. Najimdeen, and probably that will be the last question that we will, or the last thing that we will be doing before we close. So, Dr. Najimdeen, I hope you can hear me. So my question to you, is with regard to the future of the US-Africa geopolitical trajectories. And my question specifically is, if similar rhetoric gains traction, going forward, what geopolitical scenarios might unfold for Nigeria and Africa more broadly?
So a very quick one. I think my 2 colleagues have identified those points. Whatever happens to Nigeria now would have a domino effect to the rest of the continent, number 1. Number 2, it is going to create a huge PCS, protracted social conflict in Africa between the religious group. We know that Africa is one of the most religious continents around in the world, and to a very large extent, if the people of Africa or the people of Nigeria or West Africa start conceiving or nurturing that perception that one part of the world is supportive of a particular community, religious group, this is going to further polarize our African society. And we know that, again, to a very large extent, the African society is not just multi-religious, multicultural, but we are very much interlinked. So that's amalgamation, that marriage of religiosity or marriage of ethnicity, tribalism, it is going to create more chaos in Africa. Perhaps we might see this even from another context of neo-colonialism, how external entities are contributing to the fragmentation of our community across. So this is how I'm going to see it, that whatever action, as Dr. Hakeem mentioned earlier, that Trump might choose to go to employ the American exceptionalism, and if that happens, it is going to have a huge ramification for the continent in the short term, in the middle term, and as well as in the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very concise response to the question, Dr. Najimdeen. And thanks to Dr. Sodiq and to Dr. Hakeem for really very insightful discussion with regard to the United States designation of Nigeria as CPC and the threat of taking military action against the sovereign country of Nigeria. So having arrived at this juncture, I would like to thank first AMEC for hosting this event. Thank you very much to Dr. Muslim, the director of AMEC, and also Farwina, who has done a lot in making sure that this event is a success. I would like to also use this event, this particular time, also to thank our listeners, our audience, from wherever you're joining us. Thank you very much all for making sure that you are tuned in and you have given from your invaluable time to listen to our speakers. So I will use this opportunity to bring an end or to bring the curtain down on today's event. Thank you all, and hope soon we are going to convene together and discuss other important matters that we are all related to. Thank you all, and see you once again.
Thank you, Sir. Thank you all. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.